This is an SBC Media Partners production.
Swung on, hit high and deep, right field.
Phillies fans, these are your glove stories with Murph.
Check in with Greg Murphy. Murphy, you got a special guest, huh?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Glove Stories with Murph, brought to you by the Parks Casino Sportsbook app. And, we're going to have a great show today because a really interesting conversation is about to unfold. I know it, as we welcome in a guy who spent 9 years in the big league, 6 of them with the Philadelphia Phillies, and what that magical 1980 year, he was a big part of that. We welcome in Warren Brusstar, who joins us now from California, from the left coast, where he makes his home. And Warren, that's a good place to start because that's where it all got started for you. You grew up out there in California, went to high school in the Napa Valley area, and you were pretty much you were quite the athlete in high school, right? Take us through. It wasn't just baseball for you.
No, Murph. I played. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I was a three-sport athlete. I played football, basketball, and baseball. I played all three in high school, all through high school, and I enjoyed each one. Each one was gave you different feelings and different emotions, and to me, one helped the other. To become a better athlete. And it was it's that friends I still stay in contact with today were people that I went to high school with and did sports with all through school, even from when we were little league and all the way up, so it was, it's, basketball on Saturdays, just playing all different sports. It was just, that's what I was, a sports net.
Yeah, and you know what? And we don't hear that as much anymore as youngsters start to specialize early. But I do think it's so important. I mean, even my generation, certainly, we played every sport in end season. I'm curious, though. You're a pitcher, obviously, in baseball. Football, were you the quarterback, or did you play elsewhere?
I was a lineman. I played center.
How about that?
I had one distinct lack of ability, and that was to be able to run or in basketball jump. But I could play defense. I didn't handle the ball well, but it was just more than anything, it was competitive nature.
Yeah. So I would imagine, sports were obviously a big part of your life, but as you were growing up, when did you start to gravitate towards baseball being the number one? I mean, were you just that much better at baseball that you knew that's, if you were going to make it, that's where you were going to make it?
No, not at all. No, I kind of fell into it.
Really?
I played my sophomore year. I played on the JV team, and I was one of the pitchers. And my junior year, I made the varsity, and I had 5 seniors in front of me, so I didn't pitch at all. I pitched 9, maybe 7 or 8, 9 innings. That was it. And one of those was 7 innings in one game, and I almost threw a no-hitter. And so I thought I felt really good about myself. And then the next day, I went to the library, picked up the newspaper, and read where the team hadn't won a game the whole season. They were 0-17. So they weren't very good. So anyway, going on, now during the summertime, I started playing American Legion ball, and now we start playing more games. And now he has a choice. Now the seniors have graduated; they're done with the spring program, the school program, and now he's grooming me for the following season. And now I'm getting to pitch more, and all of a sudden I start having success. I beat the team that beat us during the regular season, our high school season. I beat them twice during the summer. So he said to me at the end of the summer, he said, we might have something here. So now he kind of put a thought in my head that, maybe I could do something in baseball, at least maybe get a college education out of it, if nothing else.
Right.
So, we just kind of took it one day at a time. And I had a very good senior year. I was 9-3 during the regular season. Dominated for the majority of the games, pitched 7 innings, pitched all 7 almost every game. Wow. And then in the days where I didn't start, I relieved and finished up games. So I pitched a lot of innings that spring. And then in the summer, we got to Legion Ball again, and I believe I was 8-1, 9-1, something like that. I was like 17-4 for the whole summer, or for the whole season.
And then you obviously then started hearing your name at least being talked about at that point, because soon thereafter, the San Francisco Giants drafted you, right? Right out of high school.
Right. They drafted me out of high school real low. I was what they call in those days a draft and follow. And they were very, very instrumental in my career. They, they advised me that, you're not ready to sign, go back to school, just keep going in college. Now you're going to face good competition in college, and then just go from there, take it one step at a time. So now I played 1 year at Napa Valley College, and I got to know the scouts. And so I could go ask them questions and talk to them and carry on conversations with them. And the one thing I did was I asked, who is the best pitching coach in California, Northern California, anywhere in the area? Who's the best pitching coach? And every one of them said the same thing. Bob Bennett at Fresno State is the best.
Wow.
And they were 100% correct. I got him on the phone. I called him, told him who I was. And he said, give me a couple of days to find out who you are, and I'll get back to you. So he got back to me on Thursday and said, have your parents drive you down Saturday. We have a doubleheader. And Fresno was 3 hour drive, 3 hours from my house. So we left at like 5:30 in the morning, got there at 9. And he has this All-American third baseman take me around the campus and show me the school. The last thing this All-American third baseman wants to do before he gets ready to play a doubleheader in 85, 90-degree weather. So I got to see the school, look at the campus, and then he said, come and throw for me in the bullpen. So I threw for him. And after I was done with my bullpen session, he offered me a scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. I basically recruited myself.
Yeah. And I was going to say, it takes a lot of maturity, to first of all, you get drafted. It's every ball player's high school dream. You get drafted out of high school.
Right.
But you had the wherewithal to know, okay, I still need some fine tuning before I go.
I had no clue what I was doing. No clue in the world what I was doing.
Where did that come from? I mean, is that mom and dad telling you that,
no,
hey, let's go look for the pitching coach?
No, I did this all on my own.
Wow.
So, well, I think more than anything, my high school coach helped me, because he said, I think we got something here, So if I've got something, then how am I going to develop it? I have no idea what I'm doing. No clue in the world.
Right.
And Bob took me from being a 4-seam guy to a 2-seam guy. And I can remember distinctly, I didn't transfer in until in January. So I started the season, and I didn't have a fall program to go with him. Well, the next year I got to go through the fall program with him. And he said, we're going to teach you a sinker. And I said, what's that? I had no clue what he was talking about. And he completely changed the dynamics of my pitching from a 4-seam to a 2-seam. And that's how I made a living. I could make the ball sink like crazy and get a lot of ground balls. And that was my niche with the Phillies, was to come in, or my entire career was come in with people on base, throw 1 or 2 pitches, get ground ball, and get out of jams.
Yeah. And you did that time and time and time again. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm curious still to kind of pick away at this, because so after your first year of collegiate baseball, drafted again by the Giants again.
No, the Giants drafted me when I was still in junior college. They drafted me twice
in junior college.
One at high school, one at the junior college, and the Mets drafted me out of Fresno State.
Yeah, and out of you said no to the Mets because they're the Mets. That's as Philly fans. That's what we think. But
no. I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't ready. I had been with Bob for just that spring season, and I was not anywhere close to being ready to play pro ball. No, so I needed another full season under his tutelage to get where I needed to be.
It's really interesting to hear, just how self-aware and that you were at a young age, because, most of us are not that self-aware. We think we can do it all. We think we're ready to go and take everyone prisoner, but you really understood what you needed to get to that next level. And you eventually get there. You eventually get drafted by the Phillies. And go into professional ball. So take me to that. How different was professional ball for you with the tools that you now had in your toolbox than the collegiate game?
Well, the one thing, and the biggest thing in my advantage in this situation was, back in those days, they had 2 drafts. They had a January draft and a June draft.
Right.
So I got drafted by the Phillies in the 4th round in the January draft. So now, the year before, I went to Peoria, Illinois, and played in the Central Illinois Collegiate League. Between the end of my college season, which was about the 8th or 10th of May, to the 1st of June, I had 3 weeks where I didn't have anybody to work out. So I got out of shape. Now I had to get back in shape as I was playing games in Peoria. And I said, if I sign professionally, I'm not going to do that. I want to sign as soon as my season's over. And that's what I did. Eddie Bachman was my scout. And he came immediately after we finished on a Saturday. I think he was there Monday or Tuesday in Fresno. I signed immediately. I packed my apartment up, drove home, jumped on a plane and went to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and said, okay, I'm 3 weeks ahead of this June draft. So now I can maybe establish myself a little bit, and at least have people look at me and see what they can do with me before that June draft. And I don't fall into, the herd that's coming in the middle of June. So I did that. I threw batting practice. I worked out. They didn't activate me for 2 or 3 weeks. But I was there working out. So at least I was staying in shape. I was running. I was doing the things that it took for me to be successful, and watching professional games. And then the biggest thing to me, once I started playing in Spartanburg, was the talent that I faced in college was better than what there was in the Western Carolina League at that time. Yeah. So and they were younger. They were 19, 20-year-olds, where I was used to playing against 20, 21, 22-year-olds. So the talent that I played against in college was better than what I was seeing there. So it was like a step down so I could get my feet on the ground, that way. And that was very, very beneficial. But then also I was a sinker curveball guy. And my curveball stunk. It was terrible. So I had one pitch, and I didn't have real good command of the one pitch that I had. So I told myself between seasons that I'm going to go to a slider. And that's when I took off. I went to the slider, and I had a breaking pitch that I could throw for a strike. And that was really, that changed everything.
So you mentioned your collegiate pitching coach, but how about when you got to pro ball in those early days? Was there a guy or two that you remember, whether it be a teammate or a coach?
Definitely.
Yes.
Bob Tiefenauer. Tiefenauer and Billy Wilson were the pitching coordinators for the Phillies. We didn't have individual pitching coaches like they do today on each team.
Right.
They were coordinators, and they came around and they saw you every 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. And Teef was more, he didn't really say anything to me as far as mechanics and throwing, because I had that pretty much ironed out. He was more the mental side of pitching. And okay. I can remember, I had little bits and pieces during the minor league, during my minor league career. And one that I remember vividly was in 1975. Yeah, 75. I started the very first game of instructional, and I'm warming up in the bullpen, and Teef's talking to me, and he says, you throw that sinker in, and he said, there's very few hitters that can stay on that, keep their hands inside the ball and keep it fair. Everybody hooks it foul. Their hands come around the ball and they hook it foul. And once they do that, it doesn't matter how hard and how far they hit it, it's a strike. So pitch accordingly. So I did that. So I've got this in my mind. So the first pitch of the game, I'm facing a Steve Henderson, who was the hitting coach for the Phillies at one time, big time.
Hindu can do.
Yeah, yes, Hindu. Yeah, can do, Hindu, yes. And he hits the ball. We're playing at old Al Lopez Stadium in Tampa. And he hits the ball. It was 350 down the left field line, and he hits this ball. He hits a bullet, and it's about a foot foul, and it just misses the foul pole. And I get the ball back from the umpire, rub it up, and say, okay, strike one. Right. I can't let that affect, no matter how far, how hard he hit it. Teef said it's a foul ball. It's a strike, So I learned, and that was a huge, because now when I got to the big leagues, that's what I did. I threw power hitters, sinkers in, and they hit the ball over the third base dugout.
Yeah.
And, thank God they have nets up there today,
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was scary,
Right.
and yeah, because that's what I did. And that's what they did. They just pulled it foul. They couldn't keep it fair. So now I had strike one, and then I'd go with my slider and keep moving it, come back in and back them off the plate. I learned that I can only throw 2 sliders in a row. Can't throw a third one. Otherwise, I'm leading them out there. Okay. And now come back in, move them off the plate, move their feet, and then go back out with my slider and put them away.
Yeah, it's so interesting to listen to the how you guys go about your process and how you learn your process,
right?
And then keep it consistent. For people who don't follow baseball, as closely as others, you might just see a guy throwing the ball and a guy taking a swing, but there's so much that goes into each and every decision that you guys make out on the mound, and then the guys behind you and all that. I think it's fascinating. I really do.
Right. And that's what you have to do. You have to learn how to, you have your stuff, and you have to learn how to apply it to a big league level.
Yeah. And when we talk about development today, when we hear guys saying, some organizations are better at developing players than others, lots of talent down there, but it's learning that process. It's understanding yourself and understanding what tools that you have, and then using those to your advantage. You certainly were a guy that was able to do that.
Right. Yeah. And then there was another instance, my very first big league camp, early in our first outing. Jim Wright came up with me, myself, Manny Cione, Dan Boitano. A bunch of us were coming out of the minor leagues on the 40-man roster. And we all got a game, like the second or third game in spring training. Jim Wright pitched the first 3. I got the next 3, and I believe Manny Cione pitched the last 3. And I come into the game. I start the 4th inning, and I'm going to throw strike 1. I throw strike 1, and the guy hit it out of the ballpark. And okay, so I get the ball back, and the next guy hits the ball. And I throw the next pitch for a strike, and it's up again, a little bit above the thigh. Whack! He didn't hit it high enough to hit it out. He hit it off the wall, and it was only a triple. So Schmitty's playing third. He throws the ball back to me, and I get the ball. I said, boy, I got to make an adjustment, and I got to make an adjustment in a hurry. Now I'm going to take my sight, and I'm going to start sighting down. So I look down. The next guy hit a ground ball to Schmitty at third. He looks the runner back, throws across the diamond. I strike the next guy out. I keep the ball down on the next one, get a ground ball to Bowa at short, and I'm out of the inning without the run scoring from third. And that was a huge learning process right there. If I threw the ball from mid-thigh and down, they hit it right on the ground. If I got it up above mid-thigh, they hit it 9 miles. They never missed it. I've told my sons that, we're watching TV, like I just got away with a hanging slider. I said, I wished I would have got away with hanging just one pitch, just one. They never missed it. Never.
Feels like that sometimes, probably. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it was that. I'm serious. They never missed it. I put it on a tee for them. And I went through over 100 innings without giving up a home run. So I learned the location where I needed to throw the ball, and I could throw it there pretty consistently.
And and such a big part of the game is being able to spot those pitches, and obviously in your case keep them low, and it just changes the way what the batter's able to do with that baseball. You can only do so much with a well-positioned pitch, and it's good. So you figured that out. So that was your kind of aha moment as you're heading into your major league career. Is that moment where you said, with Schmitty over there at third and Bowa right behind you, and you're surrounded by future Hall of Famers. You figured it out.
Yeah, that's another thing is I'm watching a game with my sons, and somebody gave up an unearned run, and I said, I don't think I gave up too many unearned runs in my career. I looked on my baseball card. I pitched 4 years in the big leagues before I gave up an unearned run. That's how good our defense was. Bowa made 5 or 6 errors a year. It was ridiculous. Schmitty is in a Hall of Fame. So, they didn't, so it was perfect for me. I was just a perfect fit with those guys with that infield. It was just, and I kept the ball down. If I got it up, they hit it out of the ballpark anyway, so it didn't matter.
Even Gary Maddox couldn't go get that one, right?
No. Although he did run down a few that he did get up, and he was able to catch.
Yeah. Well, he helped out a lot of pitchers, not just you.
Yes.
Let me ask you this before we get out of the minor leagues. Do you have fond memories of your time in the minor leagues? To me, I find it's one or the other. Guys either couldn't stand the minor leagues, couldn't wait to get to the big leagues, or other guys really kind of embraced the journey through the minor leagues and up. Where do you?
Oh no, I embraced the journey. My roommates I still stay in touch with today. You know, we still get together whenever we have a chance. No, I love minor leagues. It was fun. You know, it was great being, playing baseball. You're doing nothing but playing baseball, and you're having fun time doing it. You know, the bus rides are a little, that gets old, but other than that, you're having fun with kids. You're all the same age, all with the same dreams and aspirations, and it's fun to just go through it. Yeah, I embraced it. And I never. When you're in A ball and double A, you feel you're miles away from the big leagues. It's not even, to me, it never even entered my mind. I took it one step at a time, one day at a time, and just enjoyed where I was playing baseball. I loved to play baseball. I didn't care what level it was, now I get to the big leagues. Oh my God, that was, now I'm getting to play with the world's greatest players and realize after about a 4 to 6 week period, that, wow, I can play here. I belong here.
Yeah. And so that's a perfect way to jump into the big leagues, because so many guys are questioning themselves. Baseball's such a difficult game, and so many guys are questioning themselves at the minor league level. Do I belong? And then there's a moment where you think to yourself, okay, now I belong here. So you say you got up to the big leagues, and we'll talk about your debut in a minute, but you got to the big leagues, and it's 4 to 6 weeks before you can start to look around and start to feel comfortable that, all right, my stuff can play up here when I'm on.
Right.
This works, right?
Well, it was about 3 weeks before I got into a game. That had something to do with it.
All right, so the first 3 weeks, got it.
Yeah. I just watched. I was just a spectator for about the first 3 weeks.
Oh, that's fun.
And saw some unbelievable things. I mean, just going to Pittsburgh and seeing John Candelaria throw a 2-hit shutout against a team that's just offensive as can be. Right. Watching Goose Gossage come in and finish games where you go, we got no chance of even fouling the ball off this guy. I mean, just some of the pitching is just phenomenal at that level.
Yeah, I can tell, and folks can tell just by listening that you're a huge baseball fan. So just being in and around the game for you was special. But
yes,
one of the most special moments I would imagine of your career was that first major league appearance, and against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Right.
What do you remember? I mean, were nerves like the prevailing feeling, or did you feel pretty calm? How were you out there?
No, I was pretty calm. I didn't, once you throw your first pitch, then everything settles down. And that was the most important thing, especially being a reliever, was to come in and be able to throw strike one.
Yeah.
And that would relax everything. That always calmed me down. If I could come into the game, throw strike one, that would calm me down. And then the first hitter I faced was Steve Garvey. And I got a pitch up eventually in the at-bat. I think it was 2-2 or 3-2 pitch. And I jammed him, and Ted Sizemore was playing second, and the ball went about 2 to 4 feet over his glove. And there were runners at second and third. The score was already 5-0. That made it 7-0. And that was, I believe, the only hit I gave up.
Okay.
So I was fine after that, and realized, what I'd done in spring training, I just continued to do, keep the ball down, and they hit the ball on the ground. So I had a very good first outing, and just continued to build on it.
Now, you grew up in the San Francisco area. The Giants were your team growing up, were they not? Right?
Yes.
So facing the Dodgers, I have to believe was that would be like a kid from Philly facing the Mets, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Dodgers were always the Giants' rivals. Yeah, they hated Dodgers. Yes, definitely. And then to play in Philadelphia and lose to them in the playoffs 2 times is, just put salt in the wound.
Right. Yeah. And well, they were some pretty good teams, as you mentioned, but you jump in your first year in the big leagues is 77, and the Philadelphia Phillies at that time are a very good baseball team, and they're playing in the postseason and could not get over the hump. We know that story. But when you walked into that major league clubhouse and you looked around and you saw guys like Schmitty, like Carlton, and Larry Bowa, and all the great names that were in that clubhouse. And, they added a couple over the years, and Pete Rose and that kind of thing. You had to feel like, wow, especially for a guy who loved the game of baseball growing up, made it his passion, made it his career. You're playing with the best. You're playing with some of the best guys that ever played, right?
Right. Yeah, I was very fortunate. And when I first got there, I stayed in the hotel on City Line, City Line, and Tim McCarver,
Adams Park, probably.
Right. Yeah. And Tim McCarver and Steve Carlton were staying there also. I used to go to the ballpark. We'd go out to lunch, and then we'd go to the ballpark every day together. So those guys took me under their wing. And then the biggest thing was I had, in the minor leagues, I had started the previous 2 years. So I'd never really pitched much out of the bullpen.
Right. Yeah.
And Ron Reed took me under his wing and taught me the ropes. He explained everything to me, how to go about warming up. Once you're warming up, go pitch to pitch with the pitcher so you don't leave your stuff down in the bullpen. Once you're ready, then just sit back and watch the game and just throw an occasional pitch so you don't leave everything there. And just little things, mental side to pitching out of the bullpen and how to go about your business. And he took me under his wing and made sure nobody, nothing ever happened to me. I can remember a situation early in my career, or I hadn't even gotten in a game yet. We were in San Diego prior to getting to LA. And in San Diego, the bullpens were right against the side of the stands.
Yeah.
And so I was, at that point, I was throwing every other day, just getting work in. So I'm throwing my bullpen. It's the 8th or 9th inning or 8th inning, and I'm throwing my bullpen. And there's a guy standing in the stands, because in those days, the Padres drew, 3,000 to 5,000 people. There's nobody in the ballpark.
Right.
And this guy's standing there yelling at me, "Who are you? Brewster, I've never heard of you. And after tonight, I'll never hear you again." And I'm taking each pitch and I'm throwing 55 feet, 54 feet. I'm just bouncing, and I'm ready to take a bite out of baseball. I'm ready to kill that guy. And Ron Reed comes over to me and says, "Don't mind him. That's my pass. He comes and does that to everybody at every game." So that relaxed me right away. Just a big laugh, and that's what Ron did for me. He was always there. When anything happened, he always protected.
And
he's
what a good
friend.
What a good guy to be
team.
learning the ropes from, for sure.
Yes.
He was terrific. And you're right. And when you say that you started your majority of your career in the minor leagues, but then you get to the big leagues and it was relief duty right on through. Was that transition pretty easy for you? I mean, certainly if you look at your numbers, it looks like it was.
Yeah, it was, and that was the first thing I found out. So I could throw every day. I could throw a little bit every day. So that really, so it was a good fit for me, and I only had a synchronous slider, so it wasn't a lot of thought process there, so it was difficult for me to go the second time around through the order. So it was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, and it's such a different mentality, but it, I think even back when you were playing, relievers were obviously used differently than they are today. So much less of a specialist, and you guys did often throw 2, 3. I don't know, maybe
the time.
Yeah, all the time.
4 innings. Yeah, I had 14 career saves, and probably 7 or 8 of them are 4-inning saves.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and that was the mentality of, and the thing that, for me, was waking up in the morning with a chance to play in a big league ball game that day. That was, that just was the best feeling in the world. I couldn't wait to get to the ballpark every day.
Danny Ozark was your manager when you first came up.
Yes.
And he was very much a guy that guys like to play for. And, we know the story. This team could not get over the hump. 79, they missed the postseason. You guys missed the postseason. And then finally in 80, we know how that ends. But they make the change, and Dallas Green comes in. And, you think about great baseball men, and you played for a bunch of them. Danny Ozark, Tony La Russa, right? At one point,
with the White Sox.
Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Tell me a little bit about, did any of those guys have a big influence on your career, one maybe more than another?
Well, Dallas did, because he was the farm director, so in the minor leagues, you're talking to Dallas on a regular basis. So there's a much more of a relationship there than with Danny Ozark, because he was my manager, my first manager, but it was, being a rookie, and you don't say anything. You just go about your business, or, and then, and so I very seldom didn't talk to. The only thing I can remember Danny saying to me was in 1978, at the last day or before we went to the playoffs against the Dodgers in 78, he pulled me in the office and he says, "You're the first guy in the ball game in every game. I don't care if it's the first inning. I don't care if it's the ninth inning. You're going to be in the game. You're the first guy coming out of the pen in any game." And I pitched in 3 of the 4 games. In the one game I didn't get in, I was up 5 times. Lefty pitched a complete game. Say hit the grand slam off him in the 4th or 5th inning, but I was up in like the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. I was up the whole game. I threw a full game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I never got into the game. And that's the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is it's not so much how much you pitch in games, it's how much you throw and don't get into games. That's what really wears relief pitchers out.
Yeah, and I guess they do a better job nowadays keeping track of that. And
right.
I don't know if that's
Tony
good or
did.
bad, but
Tony did. Tony immediately told me when I got to the White Sox, I get you up once, I'll get you up a second time. If you get up that second time and don't get in the ball game, you're done for the night.
Oh, how about
that? So you already knew what to expect. He was
a little bit ahead of his time in that regard.
Right. Yeah, he was very innovative.
Innovative. Yeah.
I got you. So what I'm looking for, Murph. Thank you. And for his time. Yeah. And it went on with Eck as the closer in Oakland and the things that he did. And
right.
Tony revolutionized the game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Speaking of Eck, he was one of your teammates also in Chicago.
Yes.
Again, going back and looking at some of the rosters that you were a part of, man, you played with some outstanding players. We know the guys here in Philadelphia. We talked about them, but who else?
Fergie Jenkins,
Sandberg, Eckersley, Sutcliffe,
right? Yeah, Fergie Jenkins, Carlton Fisk with the White Sox. It just, I was very fortunate. I played with a lot of great players, a lot of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and having that seat, you're already blessed beyond belief in that you're playing the game of baseball professionally.
Yes.
That's what but then to have that front row seat to watch some of these guys, these outstanding ball players, go throughout their career. For a guy like you, I would imagine that would have been a lot of fun. Was there a moment that you watched the great player do something that you're like, wow, I'm here for this. I'm part of this.
Right. The Sandberg game against the Cardinals when he took Suter deep twice. Yeah, that was just unbelievable. I mean, it just amazing. Just, it's history. You're sitting there, you're watching history.
Yeah, and they still talk about it today. So Sandberg game. I mean, everybody knows it.
That's the coming out game of his career.
Yeah,
and it just to play with him and to see the way he went about his business and to see. He and Mike Schmidt were the best 2 athletes I believe I played with. They were just, they made the game look so easy. Yeah. The ability to do things without it looking like they're making no effort at all to do it. I mean, Sandberg would be on first base hit. He'd be cruising into third base and go, man, how did he get there that fast? And he looks like he's walking right through the Central Park. He's just cruising right along. And the ground he covered between second base, behind first base to second base up the middle was just amazing, phenomenal how he got the balls and just made it look so easy. Same thing with Schmitty with ground balls, anything, shots, bullets that just he would pick and just no big deal and just flip it across the diamond with the great arm that he had. And I was fortunate to watch both of them throw footballs. We used to work out in the off season. And to watch Mike Schmidt throw a football 40 yards on a line, just, hang a bunch of laundry on it. Just amazing. What an athlete, and Sandberg, I played golf with Sandberg one day in Mesa, Arizona, and he hit one bad shot of 73. It was one over. He had one bad shot the whole day.
It's amazing. It really is. Great athletes are great athletes right across the board. They really are. And Sandberg was I think he was tagged to be a college football quarterback.
Right. He was all-state. 2 or 3 years all-state quarterback. Right.
Yeah. Larry Anderson will tell you that he was an all-state quarterback at one point. I don't necessarily believe him, but let me take you back to that 80 team, because in 1980 and on the podcast once a week, we relive a game from either 1980 or 2008 with either Bowa or Charlie Manuel. So we've been going through the 80 season little by little, and some just epic games, from the very beginning right on to the end. I think we're in the middle of August right now, and getting ready to head into September. That team was up and down for a good part of the year. There were weeks where you guys were 6.5, 7 out.
Right.
And there was this expectation hanging over the clubhouse that if you guys didn't get it done in 1980, that was it. Right. Bye. So there's a little pressure on you guys.
Right. Right.
What do you remember most about maybe the dog days and into September? Because you started playing better in late August, and then obviously in September, the team played well. Was there a moment for you? Do you remember at any point being like, okay, I think here we go.
I think, personally, I believe on Saturday night, we played a doubleheader in San Diego. And I can't remember if we won both games or split, but somehow we took over. We had a half-game lead. Yeah. By the time we got to San Francisco, we had a half-game lead, or fell out of first place that Sunday. And we had some issues on the field.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, Paul Owens and Rulli Carpenter and everybody are in San Francisco Monday afternoon, and there's a team meeting. And there's 5 kids now. They now in today's game, they do call up a lot of kids. Now it's limited, but there were 5 kids out of AA called up and 5 out of AAA. There were 10. We traveled with 35 players in the month of September in 1980. Before the 5 from AAA got there, the 5 from AA and the team meeting, and they were allowed to be in the team meeting. They were told, you guys can be in this too. And the Pope started going around the room, starting at number 1 and airing each guy out and saying, pull your heads out, let's go. Enough is enough. And I think that's what kind of woke everybody up. And it just, we went from that stretch on, where I believe we were about 35-7, something like that, from August 20th.
It was impressive.
On. Yes. Yeah. But that was the one time where it's, wake up, guys, let's go. And
I love that story. And that story, again, lives on in Philadelphia Phillies lore. Like, you hear about that Gary Maddox, I think, lost the ball in center field in San Diego. You end up losing that game.
You can say that.
Yeah.
That's not what happened, but you can say
that. All right. So what Bowa told me, I think, was that Pope said to them, or said to Dallas, years later, or said to Larry years later, was the reason that they aired you guys out on that particular day was because Carlton was pitching, and he knew that you guys had a good chance of winning that game, and he didn't want to air you guys out and then take the chance that you'd lose another. So, he was pretty smart. That Paul Owens, he knew what his way around the ballpark a time or two, right?
Yes, definitely. And in that series is one of my most famous outings, at least for me.
Okay.
Tug didn't give up any runs in September. He may have given up 1. He got in trouble in the 9th inning, and there was runners at 1st and 3rd. And I came into the game, and I threw a pitch, got a ground ball, double play, got out of the inning. I had a 1, 2, 3, 9, 10th. We don't score. We didn't score in the top of the 11th. I go back out in the bottom of the 11th. I give up base hit, and Darrell Evans comes up, which for me, left-handed hitters, sinker away, they're going to hit it in the gap. I got to pound him in and hope he rolls over and hits a ground ball. They have him bunt. Darrell Evans is bunting with runners at 1st and 2nd. Unbelievable. I run down to field it and slip because it's always damp, the fog in San Francisco. I run down to pick it up to throw him out at first, and I slip and fall down. So now the bases are loaded with nobody out.
Okay.
And I'm in big trouble. But I got the ball and just said, relax, and just keep the ball down. Sure enough, the next hitter comes up, the infield's in, hits ground ball to Bowa. They throw him out the plate. Next one, infield in, ground ball, throw him out at the plate. The next hitter, I go 3-1 on, and I just have to put it right down the middle, hit it. If he hits it, game over, but it's got to be a strike. So,
right.
And he fouls it back. And now, again, it's a ground ball. I got out of the jam, and then I believe we won in about the 15th inning, something like that. But I got out of a bases loaded, created a bases loaded jam for myself. I got out of it. Yeah. So it was.
Well, the key is that you got out of it. We don't have to talk about the creating part.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
The magic, comes to a head in October. Obviously, you played the epic series in Houston,
yes.
which is truly probably one of the best baseball playoff series of all time.
Right.
All of those games that you guys played. And again, you were such a big part of that. You were a guy that got the baseball often in these games,
yes.
coming in big moments like that.
Right.
And your numbers in the postseason, even when you pitched with the Cubs in the postseason, just really solid. You seem to kind of rise to the occasion.
Right. I pitched better as the season went on. So now at the end of the season, I was always at my best. That was my best. And what I did was, to me, I kind of put myself into a trance to where I got the ball back and just relaxed. Just be as relaxed, because it's pressure situation. But you got to be as relaxed as you can, because that's when your ability flows. If you tense up and try to force things, that's when you muscle the ball, leave it right over the middle with nothing on it. Yeah. So it's something that I learned early in my career, was to be able to relax myself and to concentrate. And that's the whole key is the concentration. And that's what I always tell people. People ask me, boy, especially at the old vet, when they used to hold 63,000 people, there are 60,000 people screaming and yelling, and the game's on national TV, because we're on national TV all the time. There's millions watching. How did you handle the pressure? I go, I had no clue that there was even a person there. My focus was on the glove. I got a sign. I whipped to the glove, and I didn't know. I was just tunnel vision, and Lefty talked about that. And it's probably something that I got from Lefty, where it was him and Timmy, and that was it. And there was nobody else there. There was nobody else involved. You eliminate everything else. And I think that's one thing that Lefty taught me was, all I saw was the glove, and I threw the ball to the glove. I didn't hear any noise, anything. Nothing fazed me.
What's it like to win in Philadelphia? Now, you grew up on the West Coast, obviously Philly, Boston, Chicago, which you played in later in your career, but New York, these sports cities, they're a little bit different than other sports cities.
Definitely. Yeah, without question.
Yeah. So what was it like when you finally got over the hump? You win the World Series, and the celebration in this town was like never had been seen before, because it never happened before. Right. What was it like for you guys?
Yeah. Oh, for me, I mean, I'm so proud of being the first championship team in Philadelphia Phillies history. I mean, more than anything, that means more to me than anything. Yeah. And to see the parade, after going through the playoffs and going through the World Series and winning the World Series, but the next day that parade was just a memory that you'll never forget. It just seeing all the people, all you could see was a sea of people. It was just unbelievable feeling, just phenomenal feeling, just a great feeling to be a part of it.
And when you win together, that you're part of something forever. And right. I know that you guys, the 1980 team, were all still very close. You're in touch.
Yes.
You see each other at least, once a year, it seems like, back at alumni weekend and everything, right?
Right. Yeah. And then I do fantasy camp. Yep. So I've done that for about 15 years now. So I still see Bull and Dickie and Marty and those guys down there every year. And Kevin Sauchier's come, and Keith Moreland's come, Bob Boone's come. So from time to time, we see each other there. And Mike Schmidt comes in as a special guest at times. Yeah, and, so it's
and I'm sure the stories just flow, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
right? you're right back there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't take long to get right back there.
No.
You know, it's so much fun to talk about these games and to hear your perspective on it. For what I'm learning from you is you've always really been a real student of the game, and because of that, you were able to get to the place that you eventually got to, that is world champion, postseason big leaguer guy. And it's because you really understood your craft, right?
Right. You know, and I prided myself on that, you know, and I watch games today and see guys throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour and going, they've got no command. And for me, I had to have command. If I made a mistake, it was a huge mistake. And I learned that in a hurry. So that kind of guided my career. So I had stuff, and I just had to apply it and just stay within myself and not to try to do too much. And I had catchers. I can remember vividly in San Diego, Bob Boone, Dave Winfield was hitting, and Bob Boone calls fastball away. Well, my sinker is going to start out on the outside part of the plate, and it's going to ride back over the plate. Right. Well, if Dave Winfield hits that ball, I'm going to hit it right in the middle of his bat, and that ball is going to hit me right in the forehead. You know, I know angles. I you know, and that's another thing. Growing up as a little boy, my father loved games. We have a horseshoe pit, we have shuffleboard, we have a swimming pool. But the one thing he had in his proudest possession was a 9-foot slate bed pool table. And I learned angles from playing pool. And that helped a lot with baseball because of the angles that I pitched with. And I knew if I threw a pitch here, the angle or what it was going to do, where it would end up as far as on the part of the bat, what I'm trying to miss. And if I'm running it out here and I'm going to throw it over the middle of the plate, that ball's coming right back at me. And, you know, and Dave Winfield, he's going to kill me. Yeah. So, I mean, my eyes got huge and I screamed it from the mound at Booney. I said, no way. No, I yelled at him, you know. I mean, and there's little things like that when I got to the Cubs, I had shoulder problems and I'd lost the velocity on my sinker. So I became a slider and just kind of threw my sinker in off the plate. I couldn't throw it for strikes anymore because it got hit too hard. I was afraid the third baseman was going to get hurt. So I'm pitching and Jody Davis had never caught me before. It's late in spring training. And he gives me wiggles, fingers, changeup. And I yelled to him from the mound, I don't have one. So I went in after the game to the pitching coach, Billy Connors, who I've been with the majority of my career. I said, Billy, it might not be a bad idea for me to learn a changeup. So he showed me a grip, and I worked on it for a couple of days. I used it the next outing in spring training. And the guy, sure enough, the guy swung through it. I said, wow, I've got something now. I've got another pitch. So I kind of reinvented myself and had a very good year. I started off really struggled, but I went from May 25th to July something without giving up a run. 30 outings, and I believe it's still the Cub record for appearances and innings pitched without giving up an earned run. Throwing this changeup. And now I had a pitch that I could start to strike people out. I get 2 strikes on a hitter, and I couldn't put them away. I didn't have put anything to put them away with anymore. And now I started throwing changeups, and now pitching really got fun. That now it was, oh boy, I had something to keep them off my fastball, and pitching really became fun when I developed a changeup.
So even late in your career, you were still learning.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And that's what I believe. Yeah. I say that to this day. The day I quit learning on the baseball field is the day to take the uniform off.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's enough.
Yeah. And nowadays you're imparting that wisdom still, right? You're still around the game.
Yes. I coach at Napa Valley College. Yeah. I've coached there on and off now for over 20 years. I went into pro ball for 6 years, independent 1 year in 94, and then Atlantic League for a year, and then 6 years in the Philly minor league system. Yeah. And now I'm back at the junior college. And the thing that I pride myself with is to take these kids, because that's where I was. I was at a crossroads in high school now to go to the junior college. Now what? I'd gotten drafted. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know which way to turn. I didn't have anybody to turn to except my high school baseball coach that gave me some advice. So I'm now at the junior college at the level where these kids are coming out of high school going, I don't know what I want to do. And we take them and we bring them in, we recruit them and say, come in and play for us for 2 years. We don't care if we win, we lose. We don't care what we're doing. We're going to develop you as a player to send you on to a 4-year school. If you love baseball, we will find a place somewhere in the country for you to play. And you will get a 4-year education. The development as a player is up to you. And as far as good as you are, we will send you as far as you can go, and we will get you a 4-year education. And that's something you will have the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's how we run our program.
So in essence, the way we started this conversation with you as a young guy developing and learning what it is you had and what it took to be successful, not only in baseball, but in life,
right.
You now have come full circle and are giving that back and giving that to the next generation. I can't think of anybody better to learn from than a guy who did it the way you did it, Warren, because that's exactly what these kids need to understand is with a little bit of understanding, some hard work, and maybe a little bit of luck involved, but you can get to where you want to be.
Right.
You just need people along the way to help you.
Right. And it depends on how hard you want to work. But it's there. The tools are there for you to use. And that's the way we go about our business. And we've been pretty successful doing it.
Well, we wish you nothing but more success. And, hopefully this year, 2021, actually not 2021, fantasy camp's not happening this year, right?
Right.
That's happening up here in Philadelphia. But maybe by this time next year, we'll be talking about meeting up again down at fantasy camp and getting completely back to normal. Because I think that was the last time I saw you was down there at fantasy camp right before everything went haywire.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a month later.
But hey, look, we really appreciate you being a part of this. What a great conversation. It was really fun to hear your stories and to find out how you got from point A to point B to world champion in Philadelphia. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Murph. Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right, you got it. Warren Brusstar joining us here on Glove Stories with Murph, brought to you by the Parx Casino Sportsbook app. We'll be back with more right after this. Glove Stories with Murph is presented by Parx Casino Sportsbook app. New users download an app store or click parxcasino.com/PA and use the promo code MONEY for first bet risk-free up to $500. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Hey, Glove Story listeners, join me and the rest of Team Murphy for the 34th annual Bend to the Shore Bike Tour. Ride your bike to the beach and then celebrate at the finish line, all while raising money to help fallen first responders. Just log on to bend2shore.org. That's Ben, the number 2, shore.org, and register to be a part of Team Murphy today. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Glove Stories with Murph, brought to you by the Parx Casino Sportsbook app. And we welcome in Larry Bowa, as we do every other week, to talk about that great 1980 World Championship season. And we're reliving one of those games. And this game, Larry, I would imagine you remember this game simply because of how long it lasted. It was the San Diego Padres versus the Phils at the Vet on August 21st, 1980. And 5 hours and 13 minutes of baseball that day and night for you. Do you remember that?
I remember the length of the game. I remember that we had a bunch of opportunities. We fell behind. We went ahead. They tied it. I remember the two pitchers in particular, and I'm sure you're going to get to that, but a guy in particular was San Diego reliever who did a tremendous job for them. But it was a game that I remember being out there a long time because it started out as a day game. It was very hot and very tired at the end of it, Murph.
But at this part of the season, I mean, these are big games for you guys. When we last talked, you guys had won on August 11th, and you were 6 games out of first place at the time. But then you matched your longest winning streak of the season, which was 6 games, and you went on to win 9 of your next 10. So when this game started, you were 1.5 games behind Pittsburgh for the East. So you closed some ground, 4.5 games. Montreal's right on your tail. They are 2 games out. You have Bob Walk on the hill for you guys. Rick Wise at the end of his career pitching for the Padres. I mean, Phillies fans will remember Rick Wise in a Phillies uniform. he was at the end of his career, certainly at that point. But what do you remember about Rick Wise?
Well, I got to play with him, I think 2 years, 70 and 71, very competitive. He was a good athlete, and the people don't realize that the time that trade was made, it wasn't as lopsided as everybody thought it was going to be. Carlton obviously turned out to be a Hall of Fame pitcher, but
yes.
Rick Wise could do it all. He was a good athlete. He could hit. Everybody knows about the no-hitter that he threw against the Big Red Machine. He had 2 home runs, but he was a tough pitcher. He wasn't overpowering. He had all 4 pitches, and it was towards the end of his career at that time. So we were fortunate that we didn't face him at his peak years.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. All right. Well, pretty quickly, it was evident that it was not going to be Bob Walk's day. In the first inning, he had a leadoff walk followed by another walk, a couple of stolen bases. Then Jerry Mumphrey would single to right, scoring 2 to make it 2-0 right out of the chute for the Padres. The next batter, Gene Tennis, would triple, and it was 3-0 after 1 half inning. But in the bottom of the first, Lonnie Smith leads off the game with a double to center field, scores on an error from the shortstop. Do you remember that play? So he doubled, and then they threw it away? Is that what happened?
Yeah, Ozzie Smith threw it away. And, I look back, I like to get some memory refresher, but Ozzie had 18 errors that year.
Wow.
That was a lot of errors for him. But, in all fairness to Ozzie, the great range he had, he thought he could make every play, throw from left field, in center field, he'd catch balls. And it was one of those things where he threw the ball away. He also had an 0 for 8 that day. So it was a long day for Ozzie on that particular day.
Yeah, you know what? Then as Phillies fans, we'll take it because he could also turn the game on the other way, defensively and offensively late in his career as well. Schmitty would homer. So right back in it, you guys were 3-2. So top of the third, Dave Winfield singles to right. Then Willie Montanez doubles to right. Runners on second and third. A wild pitch allows Winfield to score. Then Jerry Mumphrey walks. And that was it for Bob Walk. He was done for the day. Randy Lurch would come in, get a double play, 6-4-3, which you guys did quite often. After 3 innings, though, 5-2 Padres. Schmitty would homer again. Thank God for Schmitty in this one early on. Made it 5-3. But, you guys had been playing so well. And, hot afternoon game. Pretty easy for you just to roll over and say, all right, we'll get him next time. But that wasn't the nature of this team, was it?
No, and we knew we were running out of games. You start going into August and you're still chasing. Eventually, you get worn out. But we seemed to hit that hot streak at the right time, Murph. And it was a momentum game, obviously. When you play that long and you walk away with a loss, it's demoralizing.
Yeah.
You walk away with a win. No one thinks about how long it was. But ironically, there were 3 guys on that team that played for the Phillies. It was Cash, Montanez, and Rick Wise.
Yeah.
They were all ex-Phillies. So that team was a reputable team. And of course, when you had Dave Winfield that lineup, but Mumphrey's had a great game that day. They had Richards in left field. They had a very good lineup. And that particular day, they were tough, believe me.
Well, I am really excited to hear about this next part because in the bottom of the 6th, you hit an inside the park home run. So take us through that because, they have personalities all on their own. How did it play out for you?
It was Richards was in left and Mumphrey's was in center. I hit a ball in the gap in left center. It was off Rick Wise and Richards got to the ball. He dove and Mumphrey's was coming from center with momentum going towards left. Well, the ball kicked off of Richards' glove and rolled to center field. So it was a pretty easy inside the park home run. But once I saw the ball hit off of Richards and Mumphrey couldn't stop fast enough and the ball had enough momentum to keep rolling into center field, I knew I had a home run. So
I should have looked this up.
3 or 4 of them, Murph.
I was going to say, I should have looked it up. But you had 3 or 4 in your career?
Yeah. But I knew once the ball went off Richards, I was thinking home run because I knew Mumphrey couldn't stop that fast on AstroTurf. And then the ball trickled into center field, and I knew in my mind I had it.
Yeah, they say the triple's the most exciting play in baseball. It certainly is great, but give me the inside the park home run. That's always
anytime I could hit a home run, I was very happy. Believe me.
Yeah, that's the way I used to hit him in Little League because I could never hit him over the fence. So that was neither here nor there. All right, bottom of the 7th, 2 on. Bake McBride doubles home. Lonnie Smith, Smith and Schmidt to make it 7-6 Phillies. Then in the bottom of the 8th, you single, Boone doubles, and you score from first, 8-6. again, using your wheels to make things happen on the base pass. That was part of your game, a big part of your game.
Yeah, I could score from first on doubles. I easy man on second, base hit, I score. I used my speed. I got over 300 stolen bases, so that was a big asset for me, Murph. And it seems like people ask me that. I try to revert back to that time in August and September. I had a real good 2 months.
Yes,
and
you did.
It started out very innocently. We played a doubleheader against the Cubs. We won both games, but we played lethargic baseball, and the fans booed. They booed both games. And I remember coming in, a writer says, well, you guys won too. And I said, and my quote was, I know exactly what I said. I said, man, the fans that came tonight are terrible. And of course, the headlines the next day was Bowa rips Philly fans. And from that day on, I got booed every at bat. And it got to the point where the announcers, Harry and Richie, were saying, please boo Larry. He's hot. I think it motivates him. And for that month and a half, I probably swung the bat better than I've ever swung it. But I knew, because of the way the headline came out, I better respond to that, or it could be a long month and a half.
That's really interesting, because as I was going through the games that we're going to talk about today, I noticed how your offensive numbers really picked up. So I went back and looked, and in the months of August and September of 1980, I think you more than 1/3 of your hits came in those 2 months alone.
Right.
You had 65 hits or something like that in the last 2 months of the season. Yeah.
So
you were hot.
Yeah. Chris Wheeler kept saying, he says, does that bother you? I said, no, in matter of fact, it motivates me. I said, and every time I get in there now, I'm expecting to hear it. But it was one of those things where if I was a fan and I read the headlines, I'd boo too. But I didn't. I said, the fans that came out, they left that part out.
Yeah.
The fans that came out tonight, they just said, Bowa said fans are brutal. And they took it from there, obviously. As you well know, they can do that.
They certainly can. But, man, how times have changed. I don't think if you stepped onto the field right now, you're getting booed. I can tell you that.
No.
All right. So it's 8-6 Phils, top of the ninth. Dave Winfield, as you touched on him, 2-run home run to tie the game. Dave Winfield was such a terrific player, probably a guy that doesn't get talked about enough in the history of baseball, but Winfield could really hit.
You know what, Murph? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know for sure too, but I think he was drafted by a football, basketball, and baseball.
I think you're right about
drafts.
That. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you what, when he got in the box and he hit you ground balls, the top spin that he would get, tremendous power, great arm, great outfielder, great base runner. He was a big time threat. He was San Diego's Mike Schmidt. I mean, every time he came up, you hold your breath because he took huge cuts. Seemed like he was never fooled at the plate, but he was a force to be reckoned with. And of course, he hurt us that game, but we bounced back. We got great pitching from Knowles and Saucier that game at the end. So, but Winfield was definitely a guy you didn't want him to beat you.
Yeah, so he ties it up in the ninth, and you're just getting started at this point because it ends up going 17 innings. You mentioned Dickie Knowles, who's our guest last week on the podcast. Kevin Saucier, they were fantastic in relief, but you guys offensively load up the bases in the 13th, but back-to-back pop-ups get the Padres out of the inning. 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position in this game. That's hard to do when you scored that many runs, right?
It is hard to do, and even take it a step further on AstroTurf, because most of our guys put the ball in play. You're going to squeak one through or something, but we didn't do it. And again, I was going to bring back their pitcher, Dennis Kinney, I think it was. I think he threw 9 or 10 innings in relief, and I think we got 2 runs off of him. And he did a tremendous job for them. I mean, it was really because he didn't have overpowering stuff either. He was sink the ball, cut it, throw a curveball. But he kept them in the game, and he battled.
Yeah. 5 hours and 12 minutes of baseball. Finally, in the bottom of the 17th, 1 out. Schmitty singles, Bake McBride triples. Game over. Phils win it 9-8. You're a game and a half back at that point. But, more importantly, as you pointed out, when you're going to play 17 innings, man, you better win it because it can really send you in the wrong direction if you don't.
There's no question. I mean, and looking back on my career and even watching the Phillies now, when you lose heartbreakers like that you should have won, that people say it doesn't carry over. It does. It carries over mentally in your mind. Yeah. And but once you win that ball game, you forget how tired you were. You forget if you went 0 for 8 or 3 for 8. you just know you won a ball game. And at that time, it was very important for us to keep winning.
It sure was. And, well, when next we speak, the calendar is going to change to September, and it's really down to crunch time. As you said, you're running out of games, but you're still chasing from behind. And this team is, chasing a world championship, and you're not even in the postseason yet. So we'll talk about that the next time. But Larry Bowa, thanks for being with us here on Glove Stories, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, Murph. Thank you.
Glove Stories with Murph is presented by Parks Casino Sportsbook app. New users download an app store or click parkscasino.com/PA and use the promo code MONEY for first bet risk-free up to $500. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Glove Stories with Murph is presented by Parks Casino Sportsbook app and is a production of SBC Media Partners. The engineer for Glove Stories is Chad Evans. Cindy Webster is our marketing and guest relations director, and our executive producer is Roger Haddon. Whether you are watching us on YouTube or downloading the podcast from one of our major podcast providers like Apple, Google, or Spotify, make sure to hit like and subscribe so that we can let you know when a new episode of Glove Stories is available. We'll release new episodes weekly throughout the 2021 Major League Baseball season.